please the court? Counsel, ladies and gentlemen, Your Honor, June 30th, 2025 was the worst day in Kelsey Fitzsimmons' life. Her whole world imploded. Her fiancé betrayed her. Her baby was being taken away. She was going to lose her house, her job. There was an incredible confluence of tragedy that was visited upon her that day. That day was about her, and she decided in the midst of what you saw testified to here, she decided to end her life. Pat Noonan, when he came back up those stairs, Your Honor, walked into a suicide in progress. That gun was nowhere near him. That gun was already pointed at Miss Fitzsimmons' temple by Miss Fitzsimmons. She was a couple steps into the room. Officer Noonan, a gung-ho cop, highly trained, a SWAT guy, he'd already been ginned up all afternoon by the insane, ludicrous statements of Justin Elaine. He had that in his head. He walked in, and like all of us are susceptible to, he made a mistake. He shot too quick. He reacted too quickly. And instantly, he realized that he had to adjust the narrative. And that was easy, to just add 6 words to the equation, Your Honor. He said, words to the effect, she pointed the gun at me. 6 words. What did those words do at that time period? Those words made him the victim. Those words made him the hero. And those words, most important, made him untouchable. Those words were a defense for his future, his life, his reputation, and they were conveyed to a very willing audience. His colleagues, his brothers, his family, the investigators on the case. So that's really what happened here, Your Honor, and it is a tragedy, and it is something that should not result in any further harm to Ms. Fitzsimmons. This should be over. This should be an acquittal, Your Honor. I want to talk to you about a few of the elements that I know you're going to be concerned about. So, first thing I want to talk about, Judge, is the lack of motive and the lack of intent. Because when it gets down to brass tacks, you know, I know that you're going to look at the law, you're going to look at the credibility determinations, and you're going to make a judgment. And here, this case fails. The Commonwealth ship founders on the rocks of lack of motive and lack of intent. Let's talk about motive. Everything in life is motive. And it's ironic that, you know, us lawyers always say, oh, you don't need to prove motive. But you really kind of did. It's meant not be an element of the crime, but motive is everything in this business, Your Honor. Let's look at the motive or lack of motive. Fitzsimmons and Noonan are colleagues. They have already bonded over shared tragedies, shared experiences. They were okay with each other. They were friends. Kelsey thought well of him, and she thought he thought well of her. She knows he has a family. She knows who his family is. She's not going to harm this guy. She knows, Your Honor, that he didn't do this to her. She knows that Justin Elaine did this to her. And she's, probably most important, she's been in those shoes before, serving restraining orders. She knows she's just a messenger. She knows he's just a messenger. This was the worst moment of her life, and she wanted to end her life. And how did she want to do it? She wanted to do it alone. She didn't want to involve these officers because she knew this was a selfish act. She came in here, and ironically, the most credible evidence that came into this case, Your Honor, was from the one person that didn't have to testify. And she came in here and she chose to testify. And she waived her rights and she testified. And she showed, Your Honor, that she's a moral person. She's a caring person. You'll sit down and you'll deliberate, and you'll be drawing the inevitable conclusion that Kelsey Fitzsimmons is a moral person. You have to contrast that with the callous treatment of this case from the other side. Hey, we're going to go serve an order on Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Her ex-fiancé got an order on her, on Kelsey. Let's go serve an order. The answer, sounds good. Let's go. Talks to his neighbor. Oh yeah, I'm the shooter. I'm the shooter. She's a whack job. So you have to take these credibility determinations into account. And I know you're a gentleman, but you have to get down to brass tacks on who's who here. What else shows you that she's a moral person? She doesn't want to involve these guys. She's trying to get rid of them. She says, oh, the guns are over here, so she can go where they really are. She keeps trying to give Houston and Noonan baby things to bring downstairs. She's trying to get rid of them. She's trying to get them away from her. She wants to do this on her own. She doesn't want to have some sort of situation where she gets shot by one of her colleagues and friends. It's understandable because she's a moral person. She waits for her chance. She gets to her room. There's a distraction downstairs. She doesn't know what's going on because she's focused on the job she's trying to do here. The tragic, awful thing that she's trying to do to herself. That's how you know she's telling the truth, Your Honor. You saw in the room, and I'll show it to you in a minute, the chest that she got the gun from, it's a chest on the floor. It has one of those pretty substantial lids that you would have to flip up to get the gun, locate the gun, pick the gun out of the 4 guns, and stand up. If Noonan was standing right there in the door frame, that would have never happened. All those events, that little series of events, he would have been able to stop it. He would have stopped it. It tells you that he's down the steps. He was interested in the distraction downstairs. He saw Kelsey folding some baby clothes, getting baby things ready. His attention, it's human nature. His attention was drawn to go back down the stairs. He walked down the stairs 2 or 3 steps, 4 steps, whatever. And Kelsey told you, straight up, that was my chance. And she took it. And she went in the chest, Exhibit 51, Your Honor, I'll show you right now. She went in that chest, flipped up that lid, got the gun, stood up. She told you again, she's a moral person. She tried to keep the gun concealed. She made the motion like this, Your Honor, where she put the gun like this and she kind of walked over here. But she didn't want the police to see her with a gun. She held the gun to her stomach area. She walked to a clear area and she put the gun to her head. And that's what I mean when I say Officer Noonan came back up the stairs, and what did he walk into? He didn't walk into some Rambo woman trying to shoot him in the face. He walked into Kelsey, who you now know a little bit from her testimony. He walked into Kelsey's room, and Kelsey had a gun to her head. And he walked into a suicide in progress room. And the man had just been holding her baby, that she chose to hold her baby, that she chose to feed her baby, walked into her suicide in progress. The gun was nowhere near Noonan. There was no threat to Noonan. And the law says that you may not, an officer may not use deadly force on someone who is exhibiting a danger only to themselves. And that's offered to Your Honor to twofold, in the sense that it shows that this was not a reasonable use of force, and it shows you that his knowledge of that statute, as he said on the stand, gives him a motive to lie. He knows that this is not a good shooting. He knows this is not a clean shooting. And that gives him a motive here, Your Honor. And like all of us, we all make mistakes. He overreacted and he shot. He had the look on his face, panic, flustered, he shot. He had made a mistake by leaving her there, walked down the steps, a few steps, and that gave her the chance. And when he did this, he knew immediately, Your Honor, that he had to do just enough. Filtered through the legal lens, Your Honor, that tells us that Kelsey had no intent. She had no intent to harm him. There's no assault here because she didn't have the intent to do so. As the fact finder, you can consider everything you said about motive, that she lacked any motive to harm this gentleman. In fact, it was the opposite. She thought well of him. She knew Justin did this to her. She had just trusted him with her baby, and she had tried several times to get these officers away from the situation. No intent to harm him, no motive driving her mindset to do so. Reasonable doubt, burden of proof, Your Honor. Where the evidence supports a reasonable and more plausible alternative, and that's shown here by Kelsey's testimony, it cannot be said that Commonwealth has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt. When there are two plausible versions of what happened, that itself is reasonable doubt. The versions themselves, Your Honor, show reasonable doubt. Kelsey's version rings true. Noonan's version is all over the place. Noonan's version is contradicted by the strong consensus of everybody else in the house. Noonan portrays a couple different stories, but if you want to pick one where it's this drawn-out potential gun battle, where she's backpedaling, sidestepping, tapping, racking, there's commands going on, that takes time. It takes time for me even to say it. Never mind do it. And that's belied by everything everybody else in the house says. Everyone else says, Kelsey no, 2 shots in quick succession, bam, bam. That does not fit with what Noonan said happened. So, on that alone, Your Honor, as a fact finder, I suggest that your duty is accomplished quickly, because there are 2 extremely divergent versions of this event. And Noonan's version has changed itself. Noonan's version is inconsistent with who you now know Kelsey is as a person. It's self-serving. And like I said, it makes him untouchable. And when you judge it against everyone in the house, he's the only one with the Rambo story. Everyone else has what Kelsey says. He walks into a suicide in progress, he sees it, he reacts, Kelsey no, bam, bam. Brain freeze, mistake. Has to cover it up immediately. What else do we have? You know, when you're a fact finder, you want to look for corroboration. What's the corroboration on either side of this thing? Or lack of corroboration, which is what really it is here. You know, the big one, the big elephant in the room is that this department has no body cameras. We wouldn't even be here if they had body cameras. There's no evidence other than people's words. He said versus she said. That's oftentimes, almost all the time, not a good place to start for the Commonwealth. How many of these guys didn't do reports? What's up with that? Why didn't Trooper Strong put the body camera video on the witness he's interviewing? There's no science. The testimony of everyone else in the house shatters his narrative. Kelsey Fitzsimmons has been blessed. She should be dead 2 times over. By her own hand and by the hand of Officer Noonan, who shot her. She's blessed. She's here today, and she has a new lease on life. Maybe that's why the investigation is what it is. And maybe that's why Neenan's story is so sloppy, because nobody expected her to be here today to tell her truth. But she is young. And as the fact finder, I want to respectfully ask you to consider the evidence, consider the lack of motive, the lack of intent, the inconsistencies. The credibility contest is firmly in her camp. She came in here and she told you what happened. Unvarnished truth. And I ask you to find her not guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
every piece of credible evidence in this case proves one thing, that she's guilty. All the testimony, the scientific evidence, the physical evidence, the demonstrative evidence, everything points to one conclusion: she is guilty. Even her own testimony proves she's guilty. Because it's impossible to have happened the way she said it. It is scientifically, mechanically impossible for it to happen the way she said it. Her story is that she grabbed a gun, put it to her head, pulled the trigger, and it clicked. The chamber was empty. That's what her story is. And that's what Officer Noonan's story is, too. She pulled the trigger, clicked, nothing came out. There wasn't a round in the chamber. She even said she told everybody how stupid I am. I tried to kill myself with an empty gun. But what do we know about the gun? What do we know about her gun? Because after she went to the floor, Lieutenant David picked it up, put it on the bed. Officer Noonan picked it up and put it on the table. And then Officer Ford came in the room. And what happened then? Officer Noonan said, secure that gun, make it safe. And so what did he do? He took the gun, he found that black box, the safe. He made sure that was empty, he turned it over. He pulled out the magazine that you can see right here. He opened the chamber, and there was a round in the chamber. He dumped it out into this safe and put the firearm in it. And then they stood watch on that until State Trooper Bonassaro took it back in the lab. That magazine that you have in evidence contains 16 rounds. It was a 17-round capacity gun. It contained 16 rounds, plus the one that was in the chamber. 17 rounds. As we know, there are only 2 ways to get a bullet into the chamber. One is if there's already a bullet in the chamber. Someone pulls the trigger. A bullet comes out chamber's open, the spring allows another bullet to come out. That's one way, and we know that didn't happen here. The gun didn't fire because the chamber was empty. The only way a bullet gets in this chamber, other than that way, is if someone racks the gun. She said she didn't rack the gun, but there was a bullet in the chamber. She did rack the gun. What did Officer Noonan say? She pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. She stepped back, tap racked, tried again, didn't do it. Tap racked again, pulled it, and that's when he fired. She put a round in that chamber. That's the only way it got there. Her story can't be true. She got up on that stand and she lied to you. It's scientifically and physically impossible for her story to have happened the way she said. That's what the evidence shows. But she didn't just lie to you then. She lied again. She lied at the scene about where the guns were. And she admitted that, and I understand that, right? And she said she lied to the police because she decided to kill herself. But when did she say she said that? They had been to the house. They had talked to her, according to her. She now started contemplating all of the ramifications of what's going to happen to her. Because she's losing her life, her job, her son is being taken away, all of these things. And so she's going that over her head. And then minutes later, as she's walking through the house, she says, my gun's in the basement. Because that's the time she made the decision to kill herself. Later on. And we know that's a lie. We know that's a lie because what was one of the first things they asked her when they went to that house? They asked her to put the baby down because they were concerned with the baby, told her the restraining order, what the parameters were, and asked where your guns are. When she was still sitting on the sofa. They weren't waiting to ask that question so she was already walking around the house. No way. And what did she say there? They're in the basement. And we know she said it there before she moved around the house, which is untrue. Because her friend, Officer Houston, who was invited to her wedding, says it also. He says, Sergeant Daly asked. And then remember what he said? He said, I was in the living room, she was sitting down, and then I saw a gun case on the other sofa. And so I opened it up to see. And she said again, I already told you the guns are in the basement. Now, why at that point did she say that? We don't know. She didn't tell us, because she lied to us about why she said it later, because we know she didn't say it later. So she lied again. You can't trust her. She also lied about knowing that her mom was in the house. She was upstairs. The officer, Noonan, I think it was, Noonan heard an older woman's voice down there and said, who is that? She says, I have no idea. She doesn't know her own mother's voice, her best friend that she just talked to come to the house. And she said she didn't know whose voice it was. Another lie. She said on the stand yesterday that she didn't know Justin was in the house. And we know that's a lie too, because what happened when the three of them were upstairs? It's Noonan, it's Houston, and it's the defendant. She hears him downstairs. Houston hears him downstairs, and she says, keep him away from me. I don't want him in my house, or something to that effect. And that's when Houston went down to make sure he wasn't coming up and went to the basement. She knew he was in the house. She absolutely did, and she lied to you when she said she didn't yesterday. And you know what else she lied about? Something so simple, but it shows who she is. The restraining order. She said, the restraining order was taking my dog away. It says it. It doesn't say that. Nothing about the dog in there. I could go on about the lies, but I want to talk about the credible evidence. The credible evidence. when Lieutenant Daly got a call, actually got a visit from Justin Lane when he was in the lobby of the PD. And Justin told him he got into a 9A against Kelsey Fitzsimmons. And Detective Daly knew that she had been sectioned before, that she had guns, that they were taking the child away from her for a period of time. And so what did he do? He called Officer Houston. He asked Houston to call Daly to meet up. And why did he say he did that? He said because those two are cool, calm, and collected. They don't panic. They keep things calm. That's what he said. And that's why when he called Houston, he said, can you call Daly, we gotta do this. And so he wants you to believe, defense counsel, that Pat Noonan was cavalier about, oh, okay, sounds good, we have to serve a restraining order, but that's not what happened. He was mischaracterizing it, and I hope you remember, in the grand jury minutes, because Houston had called Pat and said, hey, we gotta serve an order, can you meet me by the school? And Pat said, sounds good. It wasn't until he got over there, it wasn't until Lieutenant Daly was there that they learned really what they were going to do. And they went over there. And defense counsel asked Daly, you guys were cavalier about it, you knew her, weren't worried about the guns, all this stuff. And Lieutenant Daly said, no. No. His quote was, we had an increased level of diligence. Everyone was more on point because they did know what they were walking into. They did know. They did know that she had been sectioned before. They did know there was going to be a baby in the house. They did know that she had guns. They did know at that point that she had parked her car far away. This is all going to what they were thinking at that point. They did know all those things. And they did know Justin's concerns. He said, according to Lieutenant Daly, I'm worried she's going to kill the baby, kill herself, and kill someone else. So that's what they were thinking when they went into this house. That's the credible evidence when they went in there. And what did they do when they went in there? They sat her down, and they allowed her, or maybe they asked her, I can't remember, to go around and get some stuff for the baby because she knew Justin was coming to get the baby. And they were in her pocket the whole time. They followed her around the house, at least two of them, while she did that. And you know that because even Officer Houston said, I was in her pocket. We went into the kitchen, and I noticed there were butcher blocks with knives on it, with knives in them. And they were concerned. There was no chance they were leaving her alone. No chance they were leaving her alone. Officer Noonan. Officer Noonan. All of the testimony that you heard about Officer Noonan, even from the defendant, he's a gentleman, he's experienced, he is by the book in his training and experience, starting in the military, through boot camp, through security forces school, security forces squadron, with all the training he had, and Humvees and helicopters, and the SWAT team, 2 times a month training, clearing rooms, clearing buildings, hostage situations, missing persons, shoot, no shoot scenarios, twice a month, and a 40-hour block every year. For over a decade he did that. And he moved to Lawrence, as far as the department goes, because it was busier, and he had more experience. He was cool, calm, and collected. There's no doubt about that. And to say when they're upstairs and he walks away and leaves her alone because he heard a commotion that Officer Houston was going to attend to, is a joke. It really is. Now, how do you know they were going by the book at that point? And how do you know they were villagers? Because they followed around everywhere. Because both Houston and Officer Noonan said she kept handing us things and we kept putting them down. We wanted our hands free. Because they were ready for whatever happened. Hoping nothing did, but ready for whatever happened. So at some point, Houston and Noonan are upstairs, and the defendant goes into her room. And she hears Justin, and Houston goes down to keep the peace to make sure he's there. And Officer Noonan is watching her. He's watching her. And she's on one knee, and she lunges, and she disappears. And she emerges with this, pointing at him like she is trained to do. Click at his face. And what does he see next? He draws his weapon, and he says, this testimony, it kind of slowed down. The whole thing took maybe 4 seconds, maybe even 3.5 seconds. His training has kicked in. His experience has kicked in. It was a surprise to him, certainly, because she got the drop on him. And why did she do this? Who knows? Maybe he's right. Maybe she was going through him to get to justice. Maybe she was just so upset she was going to shoot anybody in front of her. Maybe she wanted him to shoot her. We don't know because she lied about it. We don't know. But the fact is, she started to shake, she started to tremble, and she lunged for the gun that he couldn't see. And what happened after she flipped? She stepped back, and now he knows, based on his training experience and the clip, there is not a round in the chamber. He knows that, and so he doesn't shoot. According to the defendant's testimony, he had every right to shoot at that point. And you know what? He actually did. He had a right to shoot her at that point. If you point a gun at a cop and pull the trigger, they get to shoot. But he didn't. Because he was controlled and disciplined. That's the way his career went. And so she steps back, tap, crack, and tries to do it. He doesn't shoot her then. And what's he doing at this point? Kelsey, no. Kelsey, no. Because he knows the threat isn't there, really, because there still wasn't one in the chamber. Kelsey, no. Kelsey, no. He is being disciplined like we wish every police officer, every law enforcement agent in this country was. He should be applauded for his actions on that day. Tap rap again. Now he knows one's in the chamber. Threat's on. She starts to raise it, and he shoots. He shoots twice to stop the threat. He stopped shooting when the threat was neutralized. Defense counsel, during his cross-examination, well, you would have unloaded her gun. He goes, no, that's not what you do. You shoot until the threat is neutralized. She was now down on the ground. But his training and experience are still taking over at this point, because what does he do? He still has his gun on her, because the gun's still there. He can't see it. Lieutenant Daly comes in, Lieutenant Houston comes up, and what does Officer Houston say that he sees when he comes upstairs? That Officer Noonan is standing there with the gun low and ready. His training is still taking place. He's still doing what he was trained to do. The gun is put on the bed. He's calm and collected. He takes the gun and moves it away so people are safe. He's deliberate in those actions. When it's away from her, he starts to tend to her. Officer Core comes in, and he orders, well, he asks Officer Core to make the gun safe. He's cool, calm, and collected. That's what Lieutenant Daley expected, and that's what he was. He didn't make a mistake. That's what the credible evidence shows. And what did he say to Officer Houston after? And this just goes to state of mind, I know. That she pointed the gun at me, and it clicked. And she tried to rack another one. Immediately after, this wasn't him saving his hide or protecting himself. Seconds after this happened, that's what he said. Every piece of credible evidence points to the inescapable fact that she is guilty. Every piece of physical evidence, scientific evidence, mechanical evidence, every piece of testimony from Daley to Houston to Core, even Lauren Page, the mother, even the defendant corroborates what Officer Noonan says. Every piece. Your Honor, I would suggest to you there is only one fair and just verdict in this case.